Welcome to Wannabe Clutter-Free, formerly Wannabe Minimalist, the podcast for busy families who are tired of the chaos, fed up with being overwhelmed, and ready to enjoy life again. Each week, we talk about how to let go of the clutter so that you can focus on the things that actually matter. And it's not just physical clutter. We talk about the mental and emotional stuff too, because if it's holding you back, it's time to ditch it. I share what I've done in my own life to declutter, organize, and calm the chaos, but you won't just hear it from me. There are amazing guests too. It's practical, doable, and simple for those of us that want to be clutter-free. You're listening to Wannabe Minimalist with Deanna Yates, episode number 147. On today's episode, I'm chatting with Risa Williams, a licensed therapist, about self-esteem. As a mom to a young girl, I am so excited to talk to her about how to build up not only my self-esteem, but that of my child's. So stay tuned today. I think you're really going to love the lessons we talk about. Well, hey there, my wannabe minimalist friends. Welcome back to the show. I am really excited to have you here today. As always, I just love doing this podcast, and I love being a resource for you to come to for all of your decluttering and organization needs, but also things where we have guests that we talk about all sorts of topics. And today I am inviting back Risa Williams. Now, Risa was on the show back on episode 130, and we talked about time management techniques. She's a licensed therapist and has a really great breadth of knowledge. She and we really click, and I really enjoy these conversations. So I know that you're going to really have a good time with this conversation too, because you're just getting to hear a conversation between two friends. And so it's really fun. Every time she comes on the show, she has so many nuggets of wisdom to share. She has a new book out. You'll hear her talk about it. And I think one of the things I love about Risa and why we get along so well is because she has these tactical solutions that really will help you in your life. But I am getting a little bit ahead of myself. I did welcome you here, and I'm happy to have you back if you are rejoining us for the show. But if this is your first time here, well, then welcome. I hope the information I provide and my guests provide are helpful and inspiring, and you enjoy what you listen to. You want to come back for more, but more importantly, you want to take the information you hear and put it into action. Because if you're just listening, you're going to learn a lot of things, but once you can actually implement it into your life, that's where you're going to start seeing those positive changes. So I hope that we can help you do that today. And so if you do enjoy what you hear, I want to ask you for a quick favor, and I want to see if you could leave me a rating or a review. You can rate the show wherever you listen to your podcast, wherever you prefer to do that. But if you listen on Apple Podcasts, you will also be able to leave me a review, which I really appreciate. I'm able to read those and see what resonated with you, what you liked about the show. And if there's any other topics that you want me to discuss, please go ahead and leave the suggestion. I love getting those there as well. And so thank you very much if you go ahead and do that. And then now let's learn a little bit more about Risa Williams. I did tell you she's been on the show before, so you might be familiar with her, but we'll give you a little bit of a refresher. She is the author of the self-help book series, The Ultimate Toolkits for Psychological Wellbeing, which includes the Ultimate Anxiety Toolkit, the brand new Ultimate Self-Esteem Toolkit, and the Ultimate Time Management Toolkit. And she is also the host of the Motivation Mindset podcast, which features productivity tools. She's been featured in Forbes Magazine, Business Insider, Parade Magazine, Real Simple, Wired Magazine, and HuffPost, and she writes articles for Breathe Magazine. So go ahead and give this episode a listen, and then when you're done, head on over to wannabeclutterfree.com/147 to get the show notes for today's episodes with links to Risa's website, her books, and more. Again, you can find all of that at wannabeclutterfree.com/147. But Risa and I are also doing a giveaway to a lucky listener of this show. So I will also have details for how you can enter that on my website. So again, go over to where you get the show notes, wannabeclutterfree.com/147, and you'll have details for how to enter that. And head on over to Instagram as well. You'll be able to see the post and be able to enter there too. So I'm at wannabeclutterfree on Instagram. All right, so I wish you well. She's going to be giving away her book, and then I will be giving away a 45-minute decluttering and coaching session. So very excited to see who wins and see how we can help you out. All right, enough prattling on from me and on my own. Let's go ahead and get to our conversation with Risa. Well, hi, Risa. Welcome back to the Wannabe Minimalist Show. How you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me back. It's good to see you.
Good to see you again. I am super excited to have you back. Our conversation last time just flowed so easily, and I just really enjoyed getting to meet you and learn more about your experiences and kind of how you're helping busy moms. And you have come out with a new book since we have chatted last. So tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about what you've been up to and yeah, what you're working on now.
So I have a new book. It's called The Ultimate Self-Esteem Toolkit 25 Tools to Boost Confidence, Achieve Goals, and Find Happiness. It's the third book in my Ultimate Toolkit series. And in this one, it's really teaching people how to show more kindness and love to themselves, self esteem tools, self compassion strategies, and basically just trying to get people to feel better about themselves right here and now.
I love that. And I think we could use so much more of that in the world right now.
Yeah.
So we'll talk a little bit about social media and things like that. But first, I just want to say that I really enjoy the format of your books. I love how
Thank
they're laid
you.
out. You have practical exercises, you name them all so that they're easy to remember and go back to. And I love that they're just like bite sized activities, exercises, things you can do with worksheets and everything. And then it's backed up by research. So as you go through each of the exercises, you talk about the research and what went into it. And so I just wanted to give you that compliment. It
Oh,
really
that's so
works
kind.
with my
Thank
brain.
you.
The way
I
my
think
brain works, I love it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's all of us these days. Really, we're all so busy and overwhelmed, and I feel like there's so much information coming at us from everywhere that I was really trying to write this book in a way that made people feel less overwhelmed. It's a subject that is heavy and tends to make us feel intense things, so I approach all my books in that way, that I just want people to have an easy time reading it, and hopefully the visual analogies that I use stick in your head so that when you put the book down, there's something to latch onto and remember how to use a certain tool with a certain name or a certain image that I put together. And like you said, it has a lot of neuroscience nuggets in there that are meant for people to understand that there is some scientific basis for a lot of these strategies that I'm proposing that you try so that they can kind of buy into it more and get behind the science of how our brain works.
Yeah. And I think like I really resonated with the beginning. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself a little bit. So as a mom to a girl though, I find that women especially are very hard on ourselves and men
Yeah.
probably are too, but I only can see in my brain. And so, I just understand that like there's so much just, guilt when we don't do things the right way or, just these feelings that am I messing things up? I feel like, I'm kind of the head of the emotional side of our home, right? And
Yeah.
so it can be really daunting and I'm getting more nervous especially as our daughter, she's 9 now, as she gets to be, kind of get through this puberty stage and this, just the stage where she's moving from being a kid and a baby to this
Yeah.
queen and kind of going out and having her own friends and getting all of this outside input into who she is. And so I feel like it's really important for me as a mom to be able to shore up my own self-esteem so that I'm modeling the correct behavior for her
Right.
yeah, and so I thought this was really great, and some of the exercises I really like, and I think would be really helpful even for someone her age, are things like the kindness blanket. Can you tell us
Yeah.
about the kindness blanket?
So, a lot of these tools you can use with your kids. I had my 13-year-old who is a boy read it, and it resonated with him a lot, and he kinda got it right away, and I think the great thing about the younger generation is that they are really well-versed in, like, self-care and wellness. They hear a lot about it from their classmates and their parents and just TV in general, so I don't think a lot of this is hard for them to understand, you know? So the kindness blanket is a visualization exercise. That's my first warm up tool, which is really to get people to understand that the way you're talking to yourself is so important. So the words you're saying to yourself are affecting your moods, are affecting the stress levels in your body, and just generally affecting your sense of well being. So the kindness blanket is the idea that I want you to picture a cozy, warm blanket that you wrap around yourself when you're not feeling well mentally. And this kindness blanket is full of kind words you can say to yourself that would sound like a very soothing, encouraging voice, such as, I'm figuring things out one step at a time. I can go at my own pace. It's okay for me to slow down and be calm as a way of showing kindness to myself. So it's like covering yourself in a layer of kindness, which I find helps us connect to the parts that we like about ourselves more. It also makes it easier for us to express those kind words to others around us, to our kids, to our friends. When we are filling up our own cup, so to speak, it's easy to spill it out onto other people. And the negative words we say to ourselves often spill out onto other people too. So that's another thing to be aware of as a parent. We can tell our kids a lot of nice things, but if we're saying a lot of negative things to ourselves, that's the difficult part of being a mom is that our kids are modeling based on what we're doing, not so much just what we're saying to them. We could say, "You're a great kid. You're wonderful." But then they hear us say, "Oh, I'm the worst. I'm so stupid. I screwed this up." It's
Mm,
confusing. It's like a mixed message. So you could be gushing praise, but not modeling a healthy stream of self talk to
mm.
yourself. And they'll pick up on the difference.
It's so interesting that you say that because I remember I was speaking to someone else on this show, and I had mentioned that our daughter was saying, we were trying tennis or something, and she would just be like, "Oh, I'm so terrible at this," or "I'm so bad. I'm not," and
Mhm.
I just was thinking, like, where does she get that from? And now as you're saying it, I'm like, I mean, I did notice back then, like, of course. But I think too, I don't necessarily say that and mean that I'm the worst, right?
Right,
I
right.
think that's the scary part is that maybe I had said some of these things with a tinge of
Like joking or
joking, right? A little
yeah,
sarcasm or like self-deprecation, but not in like a I hate myself kind of a way. But
right.
as you said that, that really struck out to me like, "Oh gosh, there are probably words I have said that did not have the as I said them, I meant something totally else, but if you took them on face value, which is what kids do, there
Yeah.
is gonna have a different meaning for that." Uh,
Well, and sometimes they model like just saying it playfully, but the problem is then it becomes like a habit and it
mhm,
sticks. And one of the interesting neuroscience studies I found was that our brains don't know the difference between like saying something jokingly, "I'm the worst ever," versus like serious, "I'm the worst ever." We tend to react with stress when we hear those harsh words and we take it out of
interesting.
context. So like you're saying, that's very true probably of kids too, that they do take some of this at face value as well. So not to make anyone overly paranoid, because obviously we're all human. We say a lot of stuff.
Yes.
We have so much mind
Yeah.
chatter, so much stream of like talking about ourselves offhandedly. You can't get too paranoid. It's about the balance, right? So
Mhm.
just even thinking that, like, oh, I say so many bad things, that could lead someone down a rabbit hole of low self esteem. Like, what's wrong with me? Why does my brain do this? I'm the worst mom ever. And that would be counterproductive. What we want to
Yeah.
do is kind of just listen. And if you catch yourself saying something super harsh to yourself, that's where you just want to pull back, get some perspective, and maybe label it and say, that was a little harsh. How can I soften that and go a little more gentle, in what I'm saying?
Yeah. And you talk about there's the hang on, I'm gonna think of which what you call it, the self-talk meter. You talk about
Yeah.
how you kind of have these different phases of going from that really negative self-talk to the over cheerleader almost sometimes too. I think sometimes
Right,
people think
right.
they have to go from, well, they've been saying this, I need to say the complete opposite. And it's hard for
Yeah.
you to make that transition between you can't really go, I'm the worst to, oh no, I'm the best and really
Yeah, it
believe it.
doesn't work. Yeah, our
Yeah.
brain will just argue with us,
Yeah.
you know? So I'm trying to get people to not see things in such extremes. Like
Mhm.
there is a spectrum of self-talk and there's a lot in the middle that's okay to do that isn't going to tank your mood or make you feel bad. So there's a lot of neutral types of phrases you could say. For instance, you could say if somebody's struggling, well, you did some things right and some things we'll work on tomorrow. That's a more neutral kind of thing, and, often our teachers say these types of things to kids. These kinda neutral phrases that don't tip your kid's mood over. They're a little bit encouraging, maybe they're not super motivational, but it is a range, and we can get away with saying things in the more neutral range and still have that boost our self-esteem. Really, it's just like when you're way down low all day long, beating yourself up, and we've all had days like this, right?
Mhm.
You just wake up in a bad mood, you beat yourself up all day long, you do a couple things wrong, and it's like really heavy duty, mean and harsh self-talk. That's when it's gonna tip your mood. That's when it's gonna affect your feelings of confidence. And that's when you need to look at, okay, how can I neutralize this a little? Am I being a little too extreme and hard on myself? And, therapists will often tell people, talk to yourself the way you talk to your friend or your kid or your pet. And that's kind of what they're trying to get at is like, watch out for, is it so different in the way you're talking to yourself versus the way you talk to your friends, to encourage them?
Yeah, I get that. And right. So and just like you were saying, like talk to yourself how you talk to your kid. I think going back to what you said about the brain not being able to differentiate between
Mhm.
you saying a negative thing to yourself, like saying something negative, but in a joking way, I think, yeah, that kind of
It's a bit confusing to kids, right?
yeah,
Because it's like 2 messages at once, and that's a lot for our brains to process. So, the more simple you can get in your communication to your kids,
to
I think
yourself.
to yourself too,
Yeah.
the easier it is
Yeah.
for our brains to process and hear those things and connect with the good things more. Because when you send a lot of mixed messages, also then when you give them a compliment, they kind of wonder, "What does it mean? Can I trust it?"
Point.
Right?
Ooh. Ooh.
And women struggle with that a lot.
Yeah.
We struggle with hearing compliments, and some of that is societal, but it's also our training to always deflect and kinda not trust the compliment, right? Like, you wanna bat it away, and you're not letting it sit inside and, like, savor it and really feel it and acknowledge that you did something right.
I'm Margaret.
And I'm Amy.
And together we host the podcast, What Fresh Hell? Laughing in the Face of Motherhood.
Margaret, I would say you're sort of a where are my keys kind of mom.
Correct. Sometimes a where are my kids kind of mom. Well, you're Amy more of a we were supposed to leave 35 seconds ago, mom.
I mean, touche. In each episode of What Fresh Hell, we come at a topic from our usually completely opposite perspectives. I bring the research,
And I bring kind of the gimlet eye. Like, is that research really going to work, people?
and almost 10 million downloads later, we're still laughing.
We also talk to experts in the parenting field, plus parents with stories we can all learn from.
We make each other laugh, we challenge each other's assumptions, and we have what we think is the best parenting community on the internet.
Check out What Fresh Hell? Laughing in the Face of Motherhood wherever you listen to podcasts.
Fascinating. I mean, what you say about the compliment thing is so true. And it's something I really have been working on for myself because
Yeah.
I definitely am not good with compliments. I do try to do that deflection thing. Like I'll say thank you, but or thank you, or like, and then I'll try to like
Yeah.
diminish it. I've been really working hard on not diminishing. So I've been really trying to be intentional about just saying like, thank you.
Yeah, and just sitting with
Thank
it.
you. And just sitting with it and just pausing and taking that moment to pause. But you also have something called the compliment booster, which this
Uh-huh.
one stuck out to me too, because again, this is something I'm really working on. And so I
Yeah.
liked this. I liked it of you taking that moment, saying thank you, and then
Mhm.
internally adding a little confidence booster, like adding a little extra positivity to yourself and being
Yeah.
able to have that in your own head of just like, let's say this podcast comes out and someone says, wow, that one really resonated with me. And I can
Yeah.
say, thank you. Yes, my guest was fabulous. And you know what? I've been working really hard on my interview skills or,
Exactly.
whatever. Like
Yeah.
I've had 100 and, 40 something episodes come out. I've learned a lot along the way and they've
I
gotten
like
better
that.
as they go. Right. So I
'Cause it
really
sounds like
appreciate,
facts
yeah.
then, right? It sounds like a fact. Because it is a fact. You have done 100 episodes,
Right.
right? Like, we can accept that over
Yes.
100 episodes, you are probably getting better and better with each episode. So,
Right.
yeah, it's a compliment booster as a way of cementing the compliment internally and learning how to do that self-talk where you're encouraging yourself. So, yeah, if you said, "Good job speaking on the show," I would
Right.
say, Oh, it's so great in my head. This isn't like out
Right,
loud. I'd
right.
say thank you. I mean, if you want to do it out loud, great. But I would say in my head, it's so great that I'm getting better at communicating. I remember even a year ago being on a podcast was so nerve wracking. And thankfully, the more I do it, the better I get at it or the easier it feels to me.
Yeah.
Would be like a factual way of just acknowledging it because it is a fact. Like the more you do something, you're going to get better. You're not going to get worse
Yeah.
over time, right? But we do that deflection. I call it like a compliment negator, and you have to be very careful about that. Because again, the message you're sending to your brain when you say, I don't deserve this compliment. First of all, it's awkward for the person just trying to give you a positive boost because now you're like
Think
arguing
about
with
that.
them. Yeah. And they're like, I didn't sign up for that. I'm just trying to say it was okay. So it's awkward. And second of all, you're not returning the positivity. You're actually giving them like a weird negative. Not you
Mm.
per se, but I
Sure.
know I've done this before where I, like,
Yeah.
literally argued with a person till you scare them away. You're like, "No, I didn't, it was bad, you missed this," and they're like, "Ah." So, again, like, just acknowledge the positive energy. Say
Yeah.
that, "I get that that's positive, I'll try to return a compliment back." And then the negating when you're negating the compliment, you're telling your brain, "You're not worthy of this. I don't deserve this." That's the message underneath we're sending, and that's the kind of message over time, if you do it consistently, it's gonna add up to feeling unworthy, to feeling that sense of low self-esteem, to feeling like, "Why do I even try? Nothing I'm doing feels like a success?" And so many women and so many people out there listening struggle with this right now. It's a big deal. I find most people are struggling with some aspect of celebrating their successes, not letting themselves stay in happy moments as long as they could, and just generally not acknowledging facts about things they've achieved and done.
Hmm. All of that is great. But what really resonates with me is the don't basically don't poo-poo on someone's nice compliment to you, right?
Yeah, why do it? We get so little kindness, like
Uh,
generally you're just going through your day. Kindness is rare in the world. So if somebody's showing you some kindness, like let's just
accept
savor that
it.
moment and
Mm.
not like kick it aside.
Yeah, and they'll look at it from a perspective of accepting that compliment is a nicety to that person as well, right? Like I think it
Yeah.
sometimes makes us feel uncomfortable because maybe we don't want to be acknowledged or we feel like
Yeah.
again, everybody on our own journey, like we know how far we want to go, right? We know where we are in the process. And sometimes we negate all of that work we've done to get there. And so we just say,
Yeah.
like, oh, but you think of all the things that are still to come, or all the things you wanted to fix, or think of
Yeah.
what you wanted to say, or how you wanted to look, or, you know,
Right. Like the
and
bar
other
is
people
so
doesn't
high
resent. Yeah, we
in
set
our
the bar
head.
way too high. But
But
I
to that person, it's
yeah,
like a huge deal, whatever you just did. They don't know
yeah,
what the bar
right.
is.
They have
Yeah.
no idea. And then yes, taking it as you accepting that compliment, as nice as it is for you, it's also nice for that other person, right? So I think if we're
Yeah.
struggling to be nice to ourselves, just look at it as a way to be nice to someone else.
Right, it's just a kindness exchange, and I
Yeah.
think if you see it as energy
Oh.
rather than words, it's like somebody's, like, giving you a little positive energy, so the best you can do if you're in a good frame of mind is to just return it back and say
Love that.
something nice. Yeah, and keep it flowing, right, until
Yeah.
it naturally will die out. Like, these things don't last forever, they're just little blips. I think as women, sometimes we're trained from an early age to not make people feel bad, and I think it's
Hmm.
very, interesting to me that maybe men don't get this as heavily as women, where we have to deflect things because, oh, if I look proud of myself, so and so will feel bad. And I don't want them to feel bad. So then we make ourselves feel bad. And then everybody's just feeling bad. It's not like we're trained to say, yes, I did. I actually worked really hard. Thank you so much for noticing that. If we could, as women, train the younger generation to own it a little more and say, "Yeah, I did that, and it's okay for people to say it's okay." That's an okay thing, like, no one is feeling bad because 'cause I'm just saying what I did. People
Right.
feel bad when it's like, "I did it and you didn't," but most of
Right.
us are not going there, right? Like, it's a rare time that somebody's gonna go there. Most of
Right.
the time, we're just trying to get through it, and we're just feeling awkward. at being the center of attention for 5 seconds, you know?
Yes, I think that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that center of attention thing is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting because so many people I work with say, "Oh, I want more praise and I want more respect and I want people to notice it." And sometimes we have to pull back and think, "Well, are you noticing it when you get it now?" And
Mm.
they have this carrot on a stick idea that when I become famous or when I reach, so many hits on my social media or whatever, then I'm going to feel happy. Then I'm going to feel proud. But you're just setting yourself up because you're not really practicing it now. So when something big happens to you, those feelings don't automatically happen if you haven't been practicing them along the way.
Okay, let's get into the heavy one. Let's do social media since you mentioned it. Haha, I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this one I'm so nervous about. I'm terrified for social media with our child because, again, I didn't have to
Yeah.
grow up with social media. I'm of the age where,
Yeah, me neither.
cell phones didn't come out until, I mean, I had my first cell phone at 19 that I bought, and, you couldn't do anything with it.
Couldn't,
100
no.
minutes, you know?
It took like an
And
hour to type a message to
oh my
somebody, and then they
gosh.
couldn't even get it
Didn't
half the
think you
time.
could text when I got my
Yeah,
first phone. I don't even think that was a thing. And then,
yeah,
MySpace and then Facebook. And now Facebook is something
yeah.
totally different than it was when it first came out and Instagram and Snapchat and all the things. Oh my God. Okay. We're gonna stop. I'm a little
It's
nervous.
too much.
Too much. And I
Mhm,
am so nervous about that. And it's interesting because she's gotten into Olivia Rodrigo lately, and
mhm,
she has a song called Jealousy, Jealousy. And it's
mhm,
it's basically acknowledging, like, I know that what's being posted might
mhm.
not be real, and I know I shouldn't care about what other kids that I've never met think about me, but I can't help it.
Yeah.
So, as our children go out into the social media age, do you have any tips that we can do to help them kind of with this self-confidence and self-esteem as they're kind of stuck in comparison mode, even though they don't want to be?
It's so tricky, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
we as adults get stuck in those modes all the time, unconsciously, even when you're just scrolling on your phone. So I think it starts with us with modeling it, and then we can learn skills that we can communicate to our kids. So it's one thing to say, hey, you shouldn't be on your phone, but then they see mom and dad and we're always on our phone. And
Yeah.
again, it's that mixed message and it's tricky, right? So I think it's when we're on our phone having a mindful intention of like, what am I doing on my phone right now? Like,
Right.
what mode mentally am I going into? Am I just doing this because I want to space out for 10 minutes because I need a break? And is it giving me that break feeling where I feel like happy or calm? Or is it stressing me out? And getting really honest with yourself and kind of maybe as you're getting honest with yourself, explaining it to your kid who might be sitting there watching, right?
Mhm.
Especially if they're young enough where they're still into like, what is mom doing?
Right.
Like you could say, I'm taking a break from this because this phone is stressing me out right now. Modeling stuff like that is even better sometimes than just flat out making rules and
Mhm.
trying to enforce them because like I said, they'll see mom and dad on their phone all day long and be like,
Mhm.
"Well, you're scrolling, you're a grown up. I'm gonna scroll too."
Yeah.
So it's getting more intentional, like, what am I using this phone for? Is it making me feel good or is it making me feel bad? Am I using it for work or am I using it for play? If I'm using it for play, is it making me feel like I am in a playful, happy mood? Or is it making me feel a little bummed out and like now I'm beating myself up and I don't feel like doing anything? Right?
Mm.
Or am I using it as a way to avoid doing something? And that's the one I work with people the most because I find that it is often a sneaky procrastination tool,
Totally.
right? Like,
Totally.
we're like, I'm just going to get to that project, but I'm just going to sit here and look at Instagram or
Right.
TikTok or whatever.
Mm.
And you don't do the project. And you kind of know you're fooling yourself. If you can get really honest and just embrace it and be like, yeah, I'm procrastinating. Even just saying that to yourself, you cut down the amount of time you're usually doing it. But it
Hmm.
just requires getting really honest, I think. Like,
Mm.
what are we doing right now with our brain? And like, why are we doing it?
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I one thing I have done with her that I don't know, for good or for worse, you tell me,
Yeah.
is if I get a bad review I will definitely
Yeah.
tell her about it.
I do
Read it
too. I
with
do
her.
that too.
Yeah.
'Cause it helps to process it, like, "How do I process this? This makes me feel weird." And
Yeah.
you're kinda showing them that things hurt our feelings. We're not these impenetrable robots who, like,
Right.
can just be happy no matter what. We have to work on it, and we have
Yeah.
to take a minute and think, like, "These words someone wrote really hurt my feelings for a second." Like,
Mhm.
maybe that's a good lesson too, to learn that the stuff you put out there is
Mm,
affecting somebody. Because 'cause we're
right.
not just training them to react, we're also training them to, like, when you're out there leaving a bad review for someone, this is affecting somebody. We're all
Yeah.
connected emotionally,
Yeah, there
you
is a
know?
human on the other end.
Yeah, who
So,
spent a lot of time and effort doing something,
right.
sometimes for free, like a podcast, right? And
Yeah.
so, like, the words you're putting out there affect people. This is what I mean, like, the words we tell our brain affect people, the words we tell other people affect people, not to make you too paranoid,
Yeah.
but it does make us think, like, maybe I should be a little bit more mindful about the words I'm choosing each day
Yeah.
to others and to myself and to my kid. Like, is there a gentler way I could say this? You know?
Yeah. And I've grown a lot in the last 9 years since becoming a mom. I think it's
Yeah,
one of the things that's made me grow the most as a human because you're
definitely.
faced she's a lot like me. She's a lot like my husband too, but you're faced with that mirror every day of like,
Yeah.
oh gosh, like and you don't want to screw it up, right?
Yeah,
To
and you
screw
see
up
them
our kids.
suffering in the same
Oh,
way you suffered, and you're like,
oh
"Why
gosh.
is this
And
happening
yes.
again?"
Oh, it brings up all that negative crap from when you were a kid. Oh,
Yeah, you see some kid
so
treating him badly, and
painful.
you're like, "How could this be repeating itself? I
Yeah,
can't watch it happen again."
right?
It's
But it's
hard.
yeah, and it is a good moment to be like, "Okay, how would I have reacted different? How does it make me feel now? How can I move past it? What's the story I'm telling
Yeah.
myself about that moment?"
Exactly, because
And
sometimes it's
yeah,
more about us, like, we'll have a big reaction,
totally.
and the kid'll be totally fine, they'll be like, I don't care, who they were just being mean, who cares?" But you'll have a big reaction, like, "I wanna protect my kid." Sometimes that's about, like, what's going on in me, what's the part of me that needs to be a little bit healed and soothed
Mm,
that maybe I didn't look at from my own childhood, you know? Maybe I
mm,
need to go in there and heal that inner child a little bit and tell them some nice things and say it'll be okay and I turned out okay. And my kid has all these coping skills I never had, you know?
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by what they are taught now. And yeah, and just
Yeah.
even us, what we've learned along the way to help teach them. Yeah, I do love that part. I think they're
Yeah.
forced to because they have a lot more pressure. I think they just have more pressure.
They
They're
do,
under a
and more,
microscope
like,
so much more than we
information
ever were. Yes.
coming at them, like, they're exposed to a world of adult information that we
Yes.
didn't have access to, most of us, you
So
know?
trying to guard against that as long as I possibly
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, I hear you. I
Yeah.
know it's a real struggle. But,
Terrifying.
kids, I think today they have better coping skills because there is more of a discussion about it just
Mm,
in popular media. Like, no one was, I don't remember anyone talking about mental health or like calming down or self care days or,
right.
take care of your. I don't remember that as much from my childhood. But now it's definitely something even middle schoolers are talking about, like
Mhm.
wellness days, all this stuff. I'm so glad it's part of the dialogue, and I hope
Yes.
kids are, exposed to more of these tools and things that are out there for free and podcasts where they can just listen to this
Sure.
stuff and learn it on their own if they're not getting it at home from their parents.
Yeah. It begs the question for me, is it something that I know it was always necessary, but is it more necessary now than it was before? And that's why we discuss it so much more. I don't think we have an answer for it. I'm not asking for an answer for it. It's just something that uh,
Yeah.
the skeptic and like analytical side of me comes out and is like, is there a reason why it's more in the forefront now? But
Yeah.
either way, at least it's a positive, right?
Yeah. Maybe people are just evolving where they realize they need to think about what their brain is doing a little more
Yeah.
on a daily level.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, there's one last tip that I want to talk about that you have, and it has to do with scarcity mindset. And I think that's something that can be really hard to overcome.
Yeah.
And working through scarcity mindset. So you have a part that looks like a seesaw.
Mhm.
So can you tell us about that? And that's the last tip I'll have you walk through because There are so many, and I could spend all day chatting with you about them.
Aw, thank you so much.
But yeah, they're really, really good. So how tell us about that one.
So the scarcity seesaw, I was trying to explain something that I saw, as a common problem, which is we sometimes get in a place where we think something is scarce. And sometimes that's because we grew up and we had hard times or we navigated through traumas or this or that. And something was actually hard to get. So we learned that panic, like, oh, there's not enough money, or oh, I'll never find anyone to date, or oh, I can't get in a school because there's no one getting in good schools. And again, it goes back to that self-talk of, "I can't have this thing, I need to panic," right? Because there's so few of it in the world and everybody's getting it except me. And then on the opposite side of the seesaw would be a more abundant, mindset where there's enough for everyone. I'm sure if I keep trying, these things will work out for me. And what I want people to hear is that nobody is on one side for everything and on the other side. It's not extreme like this. You flip flop throughout the day, depending on what the subject is. You're on one side or the other with different things. And that's the piece that people have trouble with because they want to just say, oh, well, I have a negative mindset on all these things. But you don't. I guarantee it. There are things you feel in your life you get easily that you just haven't examined, that you have a belief that's working out for you in that subject, right? It could be something
Mhm.
silly like, I always get parking
I
spaces,
was just
or
gonna say that.
yeah,
Like a parking lot.
I do. I have a parking lot. Or something like, I always walk into a store and I find exactly what I need, or I can
Mm,
get the
I want
cheapest
that.
airline ticket if I try. I mean, people have all sorts of beliefs that are working for them right now. They've just never acknowledged that they're working for them. And then, on the other side, it's easier for people to say, okay, well, I definitely have a scarcity mindset when it comes to money or jobs or partners or any of these things. Typical ones are like, how will I ever get a job? There's no jobs. How will I ever find a new apartment? There's a shortage in the city. It's these kind of ruminating thoughts where you feel like kind of unlucky in that particular subject. So, how do we tip it? It's how we talk to ourselves. So, I have little examples of how you would walk yourself over to a more neutral place, or, maybe on the higher end of feeling like things are working out for you. But again, social media really stirs that up for people, that scarcity mindset. They're like, everyone out there is getting ahead of me. That's a big one I hear. Everyone my age is doing so well. They're all going to France. They're driving fancy cars. They have six-figure job. Why am I not? Something must be wrong with me. I am unlucky. I'm never going to get a job like them. And
Mm,
we tip ourselves over so quickly just in one like scroll session, right? It's like 100 images of they're over here, I'm over here. And there's no middle ground in your head. So it's finding that middle. Like, yes, I see an image of them doing that. I don't know the whole story. I don't know what their life is like, really,
right.
And like, if that's something I want, how can I walk myself over to a healthier belief on that subject? Like, you want to travel to Paris? Well, how would I get there? What is that like? Maybe I can engage my curiosity a little more instead of just going right off the seesaw, to that extreme point of view of like, I'll never have it and everyone has it. Because
Mm,
that leads
mhm.
us to feelings of sadness, of low self esteem, of kind of feeling unmotivated to
Yeah.
even investigate how to get there.
Right. Because if we come at it from a moment, let's say, yes, I want to go to Paris. Okay. Well, if you come at it more from and instead of I'll never be able to do it,
Yeah.
how can I do it? What
Yeah.
do I need to do in order to go to Paris? Well, you're going to need a plane ticket. You're going to need a hotel room. Those
Yeah,
cost money.
you're getting
How
more in the
can I get
rational side,
yeah,
right? Like the steps.
yeah, and
You're
your brain
thinking, well,
can come up with solutions, right? If you
and your
give it a
brain
problem.
will. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If you tell your brain where you want to go, it'll get there. But if you're saying, I'll never go, well, your brain's not generating
Yeah.
solutions to the problem.
Yeah. It's like,
So,
okay, thanks for taking me off the hook for that one.
yeah, it's like, okay, I guess you want to
Great.
stay here.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you think of it like from a broader perspective, instead of like, I am not in Paris right now. Well, I'll bet in 1 or 2 years' time, it would be a reasonable thing if I save a little bit and I plan, I could probably get there. I mean, people are going every day there, so there must be some way humans are able to get to Paris, right? It gets you in that mindset of possibility as
Yeah.
opposed to scarcity, which can really boost your self esteem once you flip that switch a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been talking with our daughter too about, social media and just what you see on social media generally tends to be the good stuff. No
Yeah.
post the picture of what they look like when
No.
they hop, like right when they roll out of bed and
Or when they're
no.
throwing up from the stomach flu or
Oh,
getting a
yeah.
parking ticket or
Yeah.
anything. We're
No,
not
right?
doing our
Yeah.
everyday boring moments. We're posting our victory moments,
Yes.
but it
Right.
creates this story that everyone has victorious moments constantly,
All
which
the
we
time.
know is not true.
Right.
We know it. Even
Yeah.
celebrities, even people we really admire, are not having this nonstop string of happy victory moments.
Right. Absolutely not. And I love how you said on that seesaw, some people are up on one and down on another. You're not
And it
up on
goes,
everything, you're not down on
yeah.
everything. And just it's the same thing there, right? Like people
Just
might
finding your
yeah,
balance.
I love
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah.
I love
Because
it.
it gets you to look at the people around you not like you're in competition with them.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
"Oh, why do they all have a great money story?" Why are they all thinking money is abundant and I'm the only person in this friend group who doesn't want you don't know that. They might have
Right.
trouble, looking for a job or finding something fun to do or getting on the plane to Paris. We're all over the map with all different subjects of, what subjects do we get stuck on and which ones do we have some movement forward on? And you have some right now that are working for you. So a big part of my book is look at what's working for you right now.
Mm,
There are always these little beliefs, like something as silly as I always get a parking spot. Well, that's a belief that's working for you right now. We should maybe celebrate that a little more and get a little
yeah.
sillier about it and
Oh,
think,
yeah.
wow, okay, in this tiny area, I have good luck. That's great. What other tiny areas do I
Right.
feel lucky in? Do I feel proud of?
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Well, let's end it on that. So where can people find you, Risa?
So my new book is at the ultimatetoolkitbooks.com, and you can order all three of my books on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, or Target, or generally just bookstores around the world are carrying it right now. And you can go to my website, risawilliams.com, and I talk about my tools on my podcast, The Motivation Mindset, which is on Apple and Spotify. And I know you've been on as well. And
Yeah.
we're doing a fun
Yes.
giveaway.
Actually, yeah, let's talk about that. So, we will be doing a giveaway together. So, when this episode airs, you will be able to enter for a free copy of Risa's new book and
Mhm.
a 45-minute virtual clutter and coaching session with me. So,
Cool.
yeah, that'll be really fun.
So
So I'm
the lucky
excited.
winner gets two things, and I'll
Yeah.
also announce it on my podcast with you. And then hopefully we'll get some lucky winner to read the book and take you up on the decluttering,
Yeah,
which
I think
right
that'd
now
be
is a
great.
big thing. It's spring cleaning and everybody's looking to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. So yeah, now is the time, right? And it feels it's so interesting. It's such an energy. Like even our daughter is like excited to like, she's like, okay, let's clean out my room. Like she's all about it.
Yeah.
So I
I
love
think
this
because we're
energetic.
getting to the end of school and the stuff is just piling.
It is,
Their
right?
backpacks are like 40 pounds right now.
Yeah, right. Poor kids. Well, Risa, I have really enjoyed this conversation and I'm so excited. And congratulations on the book. Like I said, I really do love them. I've read a couple of them now and I've got to get the third one so that I round out my trio.
Thank you so much. Thanks
Yeah.
for all you do as well. And I'm excited to do this giveaway with you.
Yeah, this will be great. Well, have a great day.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Cheers.
Bye.
So, what'd you think? Did you enjoy the conversation as much as I did? I hope that the information she provided was helpful. I know I definitely learned a lot from her today and from her book. So, if you are struggling in the self esteem area, I highly recommend that you check it out. But now it is your turn. I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode. If you had any favorite parts, if you had any big takeaways, if you had any little takeaways, I would love to know. Come on over to the Wannabe Minimalist family group on Facebook and give it a share. Sharing what you learned will help you retain it and it helps you put it into practice easier. And it might just be the thing that someone else needs to hear today in order to help them on their journey. And thanks again to Risa for joining us on the show and sharing so many nuggets of wisdom. I love that we're doing this giveaway together, so make sure you are checking us both out. Go over to the show notes at wannabeclutterfree.com/146. I'm sorry, 147. Again, wannabeclutterfree.com/the number 147 to get information on how you can enter that giveaway for a free book from Risa and a declutter session with me, a virtual declutter session. As always, thank you so much for joining me on this show today. And if you made it this far, just a reminder that I would be thrilled if you left me a review on Apple Podcast. It will only take you a minute or two, and it just makes my day. So thank you so much. And with that, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will see you back here next week. I will be chatting with Gretchen Dow about habits and the 5 tips that she says that we should do in order to make our habits successful. It's a really great episode, and she and I share a lot of the same thinking and intentionality, and so I think you will really enjoy that conversation as well. I'm Deanna Yates, and you've been listening to Wannabe Minimalist. Cheers.